Welcome to the Cynical Rants, the show where 2 plus 2 equals 4, unless the bribe I get is big enough. I'm your host, Mr. Blunt. Let's face it, most of us live rather uneventful lives. A seemingly endless sequence of almost identical days stretches out before us and behind us, while the ever-lurking boredom threatens to blur out the boundaries between today, tomorrow, and that age we've decided we're pretty much done for. I guess that's around 30 for me, given my vices and non-existent career. Oh well. Anyway, as we are dragged towards the gaping jaws of our inevitable demise, we try to grasp for any kind of experience that could help us convince ourselves, when our last hour comes, that the life we lived, even though it might not have been consequential, was at least interesting to go through. But such experiences are hard to find, because in everyday life, tedium reigns. On account of this, we often try to temporarily escape it, by any means available. One such way is to scour mass media for noteworthy goings-on. After all, if our life is not interesting, maybe someone else's is. Maybe some important things are happening somewhere out there. We crave for this kind of stimulation, while setting aside the less important matters, such as thinking for ourselves. However, besides the fact that we need distraction from our existential anxiety, there is also the need to keep up to date with the things that affect us. And there has been a little thing affecting us lately, so the demand for news has been booming. And, as in all similar cases, when there is a great demand for something, there is also a monstrous industry with unethical business practices trying to milk every last drop of profit from it. Enter the world of online journalism, where trivial values such as honesty and clarity are brushed off in favor of more important things, such as maximizing that sweet cash flow, with the negligible side effect of creating a post-truth hellscape where nobody knows what the is actually going on. And what is at the forefront of this campaign against consensual reality? Clickbait. Attention-grabbing headlines are basically the front line of a news agency's content in the brutal war for clicks. Brutal because clicks generate space in which ads can be shown, and ads is what brings in the dough. You could look at the internet as a marketplace, an extremely noisy one, where each hyperlink you access generates profit for the owner. News titles are hyperlinks, and the manner in which they are worded can make the difference between the unpaid intern who wrote them getting the job or becoming a homeless crack addict. But what tends to get our attention in a title? Hold on tight and listen carefully, because it's about to get educational. The proponents of relevance theory argue that when it comes to scanning our environment for information and interpreting it, the human mind was molded by evolutionary pressures to prefer taking the path of least resistance, like pretty much everything else in nature. Another excuse for procrastination for my repertoire. Anyway, the value of a piece of information, also called its relevance, is determined by two factors: the degree to which it updates our mental representation of the world with useful data, and the amount of energy we need to expend to extract and implement that update from the information-carrying stimulus, in our case, the headline. The more useful the data and the smaller the effort of processing it, the higher the relevance. The higher the perceived relevance of a headline, the bigger the viewership, the fatter the money stacks. It's that simple. Thus, given this incentive, clickbaity headlines will try to deceive us that the articles they lead to are much more relevant than they actually are, by using hyperboles, omitting critical details, straight-out lies, and so on, you've likely seen them all. But what is common in all clickbait is this ratio. We would usually expect these two to be equal, because a news title should be a short, accurate summary of the article it precedes, but this is rarely the case anymore. One of the biggest dangers here is that we sometimes only read the title, and that can lead to some serious misinformation in this clickbait-ridden world. Now, let's go back and take a closer look at the two aforementioned facets of relevance. The first one, the useful update to our mental picture of the world, also known as a positive cognitive effect, is quite self-explanatory. Let's say you previously thought that you're alone in the house, but then you sit on the toilet and the seat is warm. You'd better update that mental representation of the world you had while there's still time. What classifies as a useful update depends on our interests, and since we are members of the same species, we tend to have a few in common. The scummier the clickbait, the more basic a human need it will exploit. Most of them are along the lines of potential danger here, find out what's behind this link or you'll be socially excluded, and there really are hot single moms in your neighborhood. The second factor, the cost of processing information, can be easily exemplified by two news titles from the second world wasteland that I live in, also known as Romania. Suppose you're not yet decided to get the COVID vaccine or not, and you read these two titles. The first, 90,000 people got a COVID vaccine today, 100 experienced some kind of adverse side effects. And the second, a young woman kicked a bucket shortly after getting vaccinated. She croaked and died in spectacular fashion in a public park. Taken in a vacuum, the second one is straightforward and easy to understand. If you get vaccinated, you die, and you also make a fool of yourself while doing it. The first one requires you to do some math, and that's for nerds nobody likes. Also, the human mind is not good with probabilities anyway, and our negativity bias and other such flaws don't help us much either in picking the actual more pertinent title. The average Joe, or in Romania's case, the average Ionica, won't see much value in this title, and will more likely use this one to update his worldview. The problem with the second title is that it omits the larger context in which the event happened, supposing that it really happened, that is, the countless vaccines administered that didn't lead to any sort of grisly departures. Its actual relevance is way lower than the title suggests, practically null. Nevertheless, local news agencies pumped industrial quantities of clickbait news just like this one in the last year, because sensational titles such as these attract a large viewership and they spread like wildfire on social media. This is one of the main things that led to the second highest vaccine hesitancy rate in Europe. Guess what followed? This, and also this. So yes, clickbait news are actually killing people. And don't blame it all on the people that fell for this kind of crap, it's just what you get from a deadly combination of innate human psychology, lack of media literacy, and greed run amok. You know, greed, that thing that is aggressively encouraged in a consumerist society. The moral of the story? You'd better exercise your critical thinking skills, or else you'll be as dead as an unvaccinated Romanian. Discerning truth from falsehood has always been hard, and we now live in an age where people get paid for producing the latter. Oh wait, that's nothing new either. I guess there really isn't anything new under the sun, so maybe checking the news every 10 minutes won't bring you the solace you seek. Lastly, before you dare accuse me of being a hypocrite, well, yes, I'm a bit, but to be clear, I'm most opposed to the use of clickbait in so-called hard news, because they have a strong and far-reaching effect on how the masses perceive the world, and mass confusion is not fun anywhere. Except maybe in an orgy. Well, that wraps it up, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next Friday also. Peace.